Dzień dobry, assalamu alaikum, ciao, konnichiwa, bonjour, good morning, good morning, good morning. How are you doing today? Couldn't let today go by without getting a picture of Sky Brown behind me. We'll talk about her in a moment, but if you haven't been here before, welcome along. If you have, thank you for coming back. This is Ken at 10, and my name is Ken Hume. We're James Alexander Estate Agents. We broadcast daily about all things property, based in Norbury, Southwest 16, which is situated to the south of Streatham and to the north of Croydon, smack bang in the middle there on the A23. And we sell and let properties and manage properties and talk about all things property, plus whatever is in the news. So how are you today? Here in SW16, the weather is overcast and a little bit grey. But I wanted to talk about Sky. I don't know whether you've seen this, but if you haven't, Google it, look it up. This girl is absolutely incredible. This is GB's youngest ever athlete to win a medal, and she won a bronze medal in the skateboarding, and she made history. It's the youngest athlete ever to represent Team GB, and she broke a record, Marjorie Hinton's 93-year-old record, by doing so. She's absolutely incredible. And to see her on TV at 13 years of age, she is so cool. You just think she's the coolest person on the planet, and she's 13. Can you imagine when she's 18? She's going to rule the world. She's going to be a social media sensation. She already is, but can imagine over the next few years what a skilled skateboarder she's going to be. No doubt she'll bring home gold, hopefully for GB in the years to come. But her history is quite interesting too. In May last year, she fell from a ramp in training, fracturing her skull, breaking her left arm and wrist, and suffering lacerations to her heart and lungs. And then she gets back on a skateboard, attacks it, and wins a bronze medal at 13 years of age. She's incredible. She's lucky to be alive, but just incredible. Just love that story, and it was just so great to see. And if you haven't seen any of the coverage, I encourage you to watch it, particularly the post interview, because she's such a cool girl and such a model for other young athletes, and hopefully it will inspire a generation of people to get into skateboarding. It's such a cool thing to do, and it just goes to show that you can do it no matter what your age. Very inspirational young lady, absolutely amazing. Absolutely love that. I'm going to tell you a story a little bit later about a property that we sold some years ago. It came to mind because the client reapproached us recently, and I'll tell you about that in a second. That's why we've got Storytime written up on the board there. But let's just go through the headlines first of all. In terms of national property, first of all, we've got new build homes seeing their average price quadruple since the turn of the century, outpacing the wider market. New research has revealed the average new build has surged by 272% since the turn of the millennium, according to Warwick Estates, with values at least tripling in every part of England and Wales. This compares to a 254% growth rate for the market overall. This means that while the average new build property will cost $92,234 in 2000, it would go for $343,185 in today's prices. Well, that's true, but I just want to temper that with a little bit of reality. If you buy a new build, you pay a premium in the way that you would for a new car. So if your intention is to buy and then move within a short space of time, quite often we find that when the sheen of the new build rubs off, and then you're trying to sell that property maybe a year later or so, then it can be difficult to achieve the price you originally paid unless the market goes up significantly. So that's one to watch for. But certainly, I think, if you're looking for a new build property, then bear in mind that the value can be ahead of the wider market, and you certainly may struggle to sell in the near future. So if you're going to buy a new build, make it for the medium term. And of course, for a lot of people, because there are so many incentives around new builds are the only choice, when they're paying deposits and things like that, something that the wider market can't provide for you. Rightmove has unveiled some seasonal hotspots as well. They've named the seaside hotspots in the UK, which have seen house prices forced up as Londoners flee the city. Hemsby in Norfolk tops the list, and it looks like this. You can see why, can't you? Rather pretty beach, that, isn't it? And that's in Norfolk. Who knew? And then we have the average asking price, by the way, there is $322,000, which is 20% up. Norfolk's Caister has also seen prices surge, and Hampshire has also proven popular, with price in Hamble and Milford-on-Sea both increasing year on year. And there's a picture of Hamble. And so in terms of London house prices, they've doubled since the last Olympics. That's another headline in The Independent, not that that's particularly interesting. The government intends to crack down on land banking. This is a practice where a lot of big builders will get a big site and then decide to sit on it and just let the land values rise before they actually sell on. The number of fixed rate mortgages is up massively and is now at pre-pandemic levels. That's really encouraging, isn't it? The fact that lenders are resetting and seeing things back to normal. Not only that, rates are lower than they've ever been. So great time. This is not financial advice, of course, but great to see that come back. Mortgage prisoners have been urged to explore other options as a review launches. I'm glad to see this because it needs to be reviewed. Lenders need to do more to raise awareness of the options available to mortgage prisoners, according to one provider. The FCA are launching a new review into the matter and how individuals might be free. It's a terrible situation when you're trapped by your own mortgage, and really something does need to be done to make a dramatic shift in policy there, in my view. The Bank of England is set to hold rates and back quantitative easing. This is a practice where the Bank of England buys bonds and therefore saturates the bond market, which makes bond prices very low, and that makes other investors go into assets such as stocks and shares, and that puts more money into the city, and that money then comes out in dividends and the like, and therefore distributes money around the wider economy, and is one of the reasons why inflation is talked about a lot now, because when there's more money awash in the system, of course that can lead to inflation. And that's why your money is better off invested than it is sat in the bank, because inflation will erode the value of your pound every day. So don't let it sit there, do something with it. And yes, any investment, and by the way, this is not financial advice, but any investment does represent a risk. Property, in my view, is one of the safest asset classes because you can live in it, right? So if you buy a house that you're going to live in and then you sell on later, then bear in mind, if you hadn't have bought, you would have rented, and chances are your mortgage will be similar to the price that you will be paying in rent, depending on what area you're looking and what you're looking for, of course. Now, I want to tell you a little story. Some years ago, we had this property on the market, and we met these vendors that were injured, shall we say. They'd spoken to two other agents, been on the market with both those agents, and had a terrible time. They'd lost trust with agents, basically. I went around to see them and said, look, I intend to exceed your expectations. I really do want to help you move in the best way possible. They said, well, okay, Ken, we'll trust you, give it a go. Anyway, we put it on the market, and we received a call from a guy that was a bit strange, is probably the right way to say it. There were a lot, you know, when you're speaking to someone on the phone and there's lots of long gaps in the conversation, and you think, is there something strange here? You know, you're just not quite comfortable with the response you're getting. They're not quite standard. So I spoke to the client. This guy wanted an 8 p.m. viewing. And it wasn't a time that we could do because it was too late in the evening. And I said to the client, look, I've got this client. He does sound a little unusual. Would you be comfortable, doing a viewing, and explain what happened on the telephone? And said, but, you know, he appears to have the money according to the questions that I've asked and seems quite a motivated buyer. So the seller said, well, okay, then we'll do the viewing. They went ahead and did the viewing. I got in the next morning at 8:30 and did my usual setting up. At 9 a.m. on the dot, they called up. I'd left a message already for the buyer, the potential buyer at this stage, to say, you know, did you like it? And the client rang up and just really went into one on me. Like literally, I had the phone. Yes, I'm sorry. They said, you know what happened last night? He came round and then he looked around the house and then he sat in my armchair, spent an hour there. Obviously not a buyer, obviously not interested in buying. Don't send people around like that. They're a total waste of time. You're just like the other. And I'm literally at the end of the phone going, I'm so sorry, sir, so sorry. Anyway, whilst this is happening, my colleague sat in front of me and said, Ken, I've got the buyer on the other line, the potential buyer. He wants to make an offer at the asking price. And so after the client raging at me for about 10 minutes and me literally holding the phone from my ear, I said, can I just say, he's just made an offer at the asking price. And the phone just went completely silent. And the vendor said to me, I'll call you back. And then they called back a little bit later on and said, I'm so sorry for ranting on at you, but we are inclined to accept. What do you think? And we'd investigated the client's circumstances by then. He did have the money, he did have the deposit, and we had seen proof. And I said to the client, yeah, he is serious. I know he's a little unusual, but he is a buyer that's there. Well, the sale went through and the client went on to apologize for ranting and raving in the first place. But the moral of the story is, all buyers are not alike. They don't come in one size fits all, and don't assume because someone looks a certain way or is a certain way that they don't have the capability of buying your house. Many occasions I've had where people have walked into my office and have not been the typical looking buyer that have ended up buying houses. I can think of one instance where a guy came in and looked particularly disheveled and asked to see a house that we had on the market, which we had keys on. I showed him around and he ended up buying the house cash. He had the cash from an inheritance. and had literally just arrived in the UK, and it was a really strange situation. And he said he was very grateful that we showed him around. All other agents that he'd approached hadn't showed him around anything, and therefore we got the sale that they missed. And the moral of the story is, don't assume anything about anyone. People are all different, and that is what makes life great. But it just goes to show there are people out there that you wouldn't expect that buy and sell and have the capability and the cash to do something that you might not expect. So don't underestimate anybody. And I think Sky Brown is one of the best examples of that. There she is, 13 years of age, bronze medal for Great Britain. Absolutely incredible, and a great example to the children of this country. On that note, I will end. If you're looking to sell right now, we have loads of buyers around, so do get in touch. We've got some great new instructions coming as well. I'm going to do a sneak peek preview for you tomorrow on the video, so stand by for that. So I hope you have a fantastic day. That's it for Ken at 10 today. Do like, share, and subscribe, please. We want to get the channel moving, and it's starting to go up with your help. We're very grateful for your help and support. Really grateful if you can like and share the video, and we'll see you same time tomorrow for another Ken at 10. Until then, stay safe and well. Look after your family and friends.